Hello. Hello, everyone. Thanks for being patient with me as I've been trying to get my setup working here. Let me make sure I'm not. Let's see. Properties. Can everyone hear me okay? Oh boy. Looks like my stream is not working very well. All right. Okay, well, I'm just going to go ahead and get started. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. This is day one of Advent of Code 2022. I haven't looked at this yet. It's actually been really hard for me to resist looking at it. But I'm going to live stream my solutions all month. So here we go. Day one, calorie counting. Santa's reindeer typically eat regular reindeer food, but they need a lot of magical energy to deliver presents on Christmas. For that, their favorite snack is a special type of star fruit that only grows deep in the jungle. The elves have brought you on their annual expedition to the grove where the fruit grows. To supply enough magical energy, the expedition needs to retrieve a minimum of 50 stars by December 25th. Although the elves assure you that the grove has plenty of fruit, you decide to grab any fruit you see along the way just in case. Collect stars by solving puzzles. 2 puzzles will be made available on each day in the Advent calendar. The second puzzle is unlocked when you complete the first. Each puzzle grants 1 star. Good luck! The jungle must be too overgrown and difficult to navigate in vehicles or access from the air. The elves' expedition traditionally goes on foot. As your boats approach land, the elves begin taking inventory of their supplies. One important consideration is food, in particular, the number of calories each elf is carrying, your puzzle input. Okay. The elves take turns writing down the number of calories contained by the various meals, snacks, rations, etc. that they brought with them, 1 item per line. Each elf separates their own inventory from the previous elf's inventory, if any, by a black line. For example, suppose the elves finish writing their items blank line. Writing their items calories and end up with the following list. 1,000, 2,000, 300, or 3,000, okay, blank, 4,000 blank, 5,000 blank, 5,000, 6,000 blank, 7, 8, 9,000 blank, and 10,000. This represents the calories of the food carried by the 5 elves. The first elf is carrying food with 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, a total of 6,000. Second elf is carrying 1 food item with 4,000 calories. Third elf is carrying food with 5,000 and 6,000 calories, a total of 11,000 calories. In case the elves get hungry and need extra snacks, they need to know which elf to ask. They'd like to know how many calories are being carried by the elf carrying the most calories. In the example above, this is 24,000 calories carried by the 4th elf. Find the elf carrying the most calories. How many total calories is that elf carrying? Okay, so just like every year, this seems like a pretty easy one. The purpose of the first puzzle that you get is going to be just to make sure that you understand how to read input and output and how to get an answer out of the problem. Kind of get the plumbing working before you actually get diving into some of the harder problems. So let's take a look at this input here. So each of these, I'm going to need to take the input, I'm going to have to split it by lines. If there's a blank line, then I know that we're done with that elf. And then when we're done with the input, then we just find out which one has the most. So there's many different ways we could approach this and many different languages we could use to approach it. Today I'm just going to go ahead and let's open a new folder here. I didn't prep this very well on this computer because I had to switch at the last minute. This one's not working much better, so I'm going to have to probably switch for tomorrow to a different computer. Okay, so let's go into Joe and let's see, can I create a new folder in here? Yes, I can. I'm going to create code, and inside there I'm going to make an advent of code. And we will open that in Visual Studio Code. Okay, are we in? Oh, here it comes. Slowly but surely, hopefully. And while I'm waiting on that, I can go ahead and go into that folder here. Come on, code. Don't let me down. I suppose I could, just start coding in Nano while I'm waiting. All right, so yeah, let's do that. I'm going to make a dir for 2022, go into that 2022 folder, and I'm going to also make a directory for day one. All right, so I'll do this one in JavaScript. I'll try different languages throughout the month, kind of keep it interesting, hopefully, for everyone who's watching here. So let's take a look at what we first need to do. Oh, looks like that finally came up. So let's copy and paste all of this input. I have to remember the Mac keyboard shortcuts are not the same as the Linux ones I'm used to. Let's nano input.txt, and we'll paste that in there. And it's laggy. Now I'm just going to kill code and just do it in Nano today. I think that the CPU's maxed out on this machine. Poor thing. Alright, hopefully that brings my processor utilization down a little bit, just enough. Alright, I'm going to save this and exit. And then we'll come into here. Let's first start by importing read file sync from FS. The first thing I will always do when I'm solving one of these things is just get the input read in and be able to write it out. So actually, let's see, can I duplicate this new window with basic? Okay, and we'll make that bigger here too. Code, advent of code, 2022-01. All right, so now I can, let's see, yeah, switch back and forth between without having to exit and re-enter. Okay, so we're gonna import files, file systems read file sync function from Node.js. We'll go ahead and say const input equals read file sync. We'll pass it input.txt, and we want to string it because it'll at first come as a buffer. Let's just console.log that input and see what we get. So we'll say node index.mjs. No, I don't have node. Okay, one moment, please. Let's get NVM, and I'll just pull it down that way. NVM. Hopefully the rest of the month this will be going a lot smoother once I figure out all of the things I need to do here. I haven't streamed in several years. It's been a long time, and I'm definitely on a different computer now than I was then. So even different operating system. Come on. You can do it. All right, I just want this one. Oh, I can just click the copy button. That's even better. Come on. You can do it. Okay, copied. All right, let's head over here, paste that in. And over here we can close this tab. All right, and we don't need this anymore because we've saved it locally. Alright, so we can say source bash rc, I believe. Profile. Oh boy. Oh, profile not found. Create one of them, run the script again. Okay. Touch dot bash rc. Alright. There we go. Now we can source tilde bash rc and then nvm install, is it 16 we're on now, I think. That should be recent enough, even if it's not the latest. Oh, FNM, huh? I did not know about FNM. I'll have to check that one out. NVM's, treated me pretty good over the years. I haven't had anything to complain about, but maybe FNM is shinier and more in right now. So I'll have to check it out and see if it's all the hype is about. Oh wow, this probably doesn't need to be quite that big. You can probably read that, hopefully, maybe. All right. Come on. Is this gonna finish or not? All right, well, while we're waiting on that, so I'm assuming this will work because I've done things similar to this in the past. So basically, looking at the input, and we can put that in another tab so we can kind of look at it. Let's see, new tab. And we'll go cd code, admin of code. Oh, I'm already in the O1 folder. Okay, we'll just cat input. Right, so we look at this input. Oh good, it's done. Cool. All right, well, let's run it. Node index.mjs. Okay, cool. All right, so we've got this. We need to divide up each line. And the way I like to do that is, even though I do a lot of Linux and Mac, I know that some people might be on Windows. And so I always, when I'm splitting for lines, I will say maybe there's a carriage return, but I know there's going to be a new line. So we'll split using that regex to get each of the lines as their own string. And so we'll have an array of strings here. The other thing that we have to consider, though, is that we're going to have a blank line between elves. So what we can do is, well, let's first of all say const lines equals this, and we can log out the lines and make sure that things are still working the way that we want it to. Save that. Come back here and not to that one. I guess I can close this one. Exit. Okay. So we'll do this here. And you'll see now that instead of getting just a big dump of strings, we'll have an array of strings. Now, one thing that you'll notice right away, if we go back and look at here, our example is very, very simple. It's literally like 14 lines. But if you look over here, we've got, can I just close this one that's done? Okay, there we go. You can see we've got all of these plus 2145 more. That's a lot. And so it probably won't be a big deal for this puzzle, but throughout the month, you need to start thinking more and more about how your solution is going to work at scale. Is it going to run out of memory? Is it going to take too long to compute the answer? You need to be able to have answers to those questions, or at least think about them so you don't get stuck. Now, for this problem here, each of these lines represents a number. So we probably want to have each of those lines actually be translated into a number in our program. So we're going to take these lines and we're going to map it and say line goes to, and we'll say, here's the thing, we could just say plus line, and that will give us the integer version of it. But the problem we're going to run into there is, if we run this again, you see the zeros, and I guess we don't necessarily care about zeros. There could be a zero that's a legitimate value, but it's not going to add anything to the total. But I like to be a little bit more specific about this, and maybe what we do here is we say, is this line a nan, not a number? If it is, then we're going to return null, and if it's not, oh, whoops, we don't want to say is nan actually, we just want to say is line equal to the empty string. Because as we saw, it wasn't returning nan, it was returning 0. So we'll do it like this. So basically we're saying, take this line, if the line is empty, then we know it's a null, otherwise we're going to convert it to a number. I think that should work, and if we come back here, come back here and run it, sure enough, we've got our nulls there. Nulls are our markers between the two elves. Now, we could go the most efficient route and just go through the list in big O-N time by doing something like this. Lines dot for each, and we're going to pass in line. We want to figure out what is the maximum number of calories that are being carried by an elf. So basically we could say let this elf calories equals 0, and let max elf calories equals 0. Okay? So we can assume that we are on the first elf here. We can say if not line, basically if it's null, then we know we're on a new elf. Otherwise, we want to add. So actually, let's invert this since we're going to have an if and an else. It makes a little more sense to have the truth come first. Okay, so we'll say this elf calories plus equals line. Because we know line is going to be a number, we know this should work. If line is null, then we're going to say if max elf calories is less than this elf calories, then we're going to say max elf calories equals this elf calories. But regardless of whether it is or not, we are still going to set this elf calories back to 0. Okay? So just to review, we're going through each line here. We're going to see if the line is truthy. If it is, then we know it's a number. We're going to add it to the current ELF's calorie count. If it's not truthy, we're going to check to see if this ELF that we've been tracking here has more calories than the max ELF. And if it has, then we're going to set it to the max and then reset this ELF because we know that the next line is going to be a new ELF. Okay, so then once we've gotten through all of the different ELFs, we're going to output the max ELF calories. All right, I think we're done with part A, but let's see. We'll come over here, we're going to run this, and we're going to get the answer 66306. That may or may not be the right answer. Let's see. 66306. Submit. That's the right answer. Woohoo! We are halfway done. Now, what you will normally see is that part 2 usually will take your most efficient solution and put a whole bunch more nuance on top of it. So let's look at what part 2 has for us. By the time you calculate the answer to the ELF's question, they've already realized that the ELF carrying the most calories of food might eventually run out of snacks. To avoid this unacceptable situation, the ELFs would instead like to know the total calories carried by the top 3 ELFs carrying the most calories. That way, even if one of those ELFs runs out of snacks, they still have 2 backups. In the example above, the top 3 ELFs are the 4th ELF, the 3rd ELF, and the 5th ELF. The sum of those calories carried by those 3 ELFs is 4,500. Find the top 3 ELFs carrying the most calories. How many calories are those ELFs carrying in total? Okay, so what we could do here is we could just add each ELF to a list, sort the list, and then grab the top 3. There's definitely more performant ways of doing it. For example, you could just keep an array of the top 3 and then boot out the one that is lower. But then you have to do a bunch of processing after each ELF. So I don't know. I'm just going to go ahead and add them to an array here. So we're going to say ELF calories equals an empty array. And then instead of doing this bit here, actually we don't even need to worry about this until the end. So we can just go ahead and erase that. And instead, we're just going to ELF calories dot push this ELF calories, and then again this ELF calories equals 0. Okay, so we're just going to push them into an array. We'll keep track of all the ELFs, and then at the end we'll worry about which one has the most. Alright, so we're down here at the bottom. We've now gone through and put all of the ELFs into an array. We are now going to say ELF calories dot sort, and we'll say A and B are our different ELFs, and we are going to say we want this to be in descending order so that the most calories are at the start. And so we'll say B minus A. Oops. All right, I just want to make sure, first of all, that I'm getting the right value there. And I believe, if I remember right, the sort function in JavaScript does it in place, so it's going to actually modify the array. So I'm just going to console.log it when it's done with that. Okay, so we come over here. Let's do that again. Oh no! Oh, yep, too many parentheses. Let's try that again. Okay, so it does indeed look like it's being sorted in the right way. So our final thing that we need to do now that they are sorted is take the top three. So the way we could do that in JavaScript would be to slice the array, starting at 0 and containing 3, I think. That may be an end index. I can't remember off the top of my head which one that is. But either way, starting at 0, it doesn't matter. It's going to be the same. So let's take a look at that. Oh, whoops. We need to save that as a variable. So we'll say top 3 equals that. And then we'll console log the top 3. Okay, so those are our top 3 values. Now, I mean, we could go through another loop like we did here and go ahead and do that the same way. But I'm actually going to use the reduce function because I feel like this is a really important function that maybe newcomers to JavaScript don't know about or don't understand. And being able to map, sort, reduce, filter in whatever language, the way that they have implemented it is really, really important for manipulating data and especially for solving these kinds of problems. So I'm going to say const sum equals top3.reduce. Now what reduce does is it takes in an array and outputs a single value from it. So what we're going to do here is we say, so this is our input array is top 3. We're going to tell it what to do to reduce this into a single value. So we're going to say the previous value and the current value go to the previous value plus the current value. So that's just, it will call this for each element in the array, and the function that we are implementing here is going to just add what was previously added plus the current. Now, in order to make that make sense, we have to have a starting value for the previous. So we start the sum at 0. That will add up everything in the array. Let's see what that sum ends up looking like. And we get 195,292. Let's see if that's our correct answer. Oh, whoops, I'm on a Mac. I need to use Command-C. And Command-V. Woohoo! And that's it. Now, a couple of things in retrospect as I finish this up. I should have not overridden my part 1 solution to get my part 2. I always like to be able to keep my both versions of it so that I can go back and look at what I did. So I really should have done that. In fact, I could say like cp index.mjs to index part, this is, let's see, go back. Come on. Part 2. So they call them 1 and 2 .mjs. So we can do it like that. And then I can go back into index and I can change it back to the way it was before. We'll say max ELF calories equals 0. And then if line plus it else if max ELF calories is greater or is less than this ELF calories then we are going to set max ELF calories to this ELF calories. Max ELF calories equals this ELF calories, and then we just console log max ELF calories. Luckily, it wasn't too hard to recreate my part A solution. That won't be the case as the month goes on, so I would recommend as you're going through and doing this that you are non-destructive in your approach here and save your previous solutions. Okay, I'm going to exit and then I'm going to move index.mjs to index1.mjs. Okay, so now I can have my index 1 and my index 2 both there. And that's it for today. We got it working, and if I refresh this, it will no longer have that answer box there. Yep, both parts are complete. I have 2 stars, so I can come back out here and see what we got here. So that's all for today. What language would you guys like to see me use in future puzzles? Go ahead and comment down below. I've got a lot of experience with JavaScript, TypeScript, PowerShell, C#, and a handful of other languages. I also am not afraid to jump into a language I'm not familiar with. It just might take a little bit longer for me to figure it out. But thanks everyone for watching, and good luck with your own Advent of Code adventure. We will see you next time. I will post shortly the schedule for when I'm going to do the next video. I'll probably have to